Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Partial Historians. I am Dr. Rad.
And I am Dr. G.
And we're back, tracing the journey of Rome from the founding of the city.
And boy, what an exciting ride it is at the moment. We are in an intense moment. We left you on like an amazing cliffhanger where the Sabines have just like emerged over the horizon as a looming force towards the city of Rome.
And we actually haven't talked a lot about the Sabines.
Because nobody cares about them.
Yeah. But I mean, as people who loom quite large in the mythological stories of early Roman history, you know, a traditional enemy, they've been a bit quiet on the Western Front.
That was yonks ago.
Exactly, yeah. And things have also been a bit tense on the domestic front as well, particularly in my account. Livy is continually reminding me that there are these issues going on with the tribunes pressing for the law against the laws. So this formalizing of the Roman legal system so that the plebeians are a little bit more aware of, you know, what they're up against.
You have rights. You need to know what they are.
Or if you're going to discriminate against me, at least I know how and why.
Yeah, please tell me why.
Yeah. I actually forgot to mention last time that when the tribunes were kicking off at the beginning of 458 about the law against the laws once they'd been safely re-elected, they actually had granted the consuls 2 months to inspect their proposal and consider it from every angle, I suppose.
How generous.
I know. And they were thinking that at the end of this 2 months, they would then lay before the people exactly what was being proposed. And I like the way this has been translated. Explain what hidden mischief might have been involved, potentially allowing a vote on the issue.
Wow.
And so there'd actually been this slight lull, except that's when the Aequians broke the treaty. So I forgot to mention that.
I'm going to hold them responsible for the cancellation of the law against the laws.
Exactly. If it's not internal, it's external, and vice versa.
Yeah, well, the Aequians have really caught the Romans in a bind at this point.
They certainly have.
When we were last talking about this, the Aequians are being led by one charismatic, almost king/divine light figure, Cloelius Gracchus, and not only has he insulted the Romans by telling them to talk to the trees, he doesn't care about what they've got to say, but he's also now managed to trick the Roman army into being stuck in a valley while he's encamped up a hill on a road looking down at them and kind of laughing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So the consul Minucius is the one that had been trapped by the Aequians. And in the meantime, the Sabines had made this sally against Roman territory, and Nautius has been campaigning against them, and he seems to be doing pretty well, mostly because he's sort of chipping away. You know, he's doing little raids here and there, and cutting them down gradually, and then he also seeks revenge on the Sabines' own territory, attacking their fields. Apparently attacking it so badly, it made it seem as though the Sabines had never come near Rome, because the damage they did was just so inconsequential in comparison. For this reason, I presume...
Nautius has been a good boy.
Exactly, yeah. For this reason, I presume Minucius reached out to him and said, I'm in a little bit of a bind.
Mate, I hear you're free.
Yeah, would you mind coming to rescue me? However, not even Nautius might be equal to the task, Dr. G.
Wow.
Exactly. It's time to unleash the hidden force that is the Dictator. I know.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Well, it's happening. I mean, and again, this is something in my account which I couldn't really talk about when you were referring to this moment or a similar moment a little while ago. But I feel like there must be some connection between them. They're too similar not to be related. It's just, again, that ordering of things and the way that Livy and Dionysius put things slightly differently and have things in a slightly different arrangement. So it's at this moment that they agree there's only one man who can come to the aid of Minucius.
Oh, no.
Help the dignity of Rome.
Please don't.
Cincinnatus! And it's at this moment that we have that absolutely quintessential Quinctus moment.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. Where they send out representatives from Rome to talk to him and talk him into serving as a dictator. Lo and behold, where do they find him?
He's at his farm.
He's at his farm.
Guess what? He's not wearing any clothes.
Exactly. Yeah, toiling away, the sweat running down his slightly tanned back.
You have to imagine a man quite fit, in his 50s, sweating in the sun. He's an Italian, so we don't know how hairy he is.
I like to imagine Brad Pitt because he has aged well.
If we're talking like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood Brad Pitt, I'm down with that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so, yes, Livy says, look, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but it was something rustic.
Livy's amazing. All right, I can't wait to give you Dionysius's version now.
Yeah, it was something hot. You know, like,
it was a warm day.
Yeah. So the representatives from Rome come up to him and say, look, we've got some important news, so could you please put on a toga? So he tells
preferably this giant purple toga that we brought with us.
This is actually the most exciting moment of this episode for me because I'm about to actually tell you that I know the name of his wife.
Oh, yeah?
We've been talking about this guy's family in one way or another, like whether it's him or his son Kaiso. We've been talking about these guys for ages. Not once has the wife/mother been mentioned.
Yeah, she was pretty important.
Yeah, her name is apparently Ricilia, or Ricilia, I suppose you would say.
Nice.
Yeah, and he says to her, I think something's afoot. Go and get my toga, would you? So he tries to wipe away as much of the sweat and dirt that he's accrued doing his sexy, manly farming. And puts on his toga, and at that moment they feel...
She's like, don't go, you're looking so good right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Stay home, honey.
Now that they see him equipped in all his glory...
I'll make more sons with you.
They say, you're a dictator, hail. Well done, good on you, that you're considered up to this task.
Jolly good show.
Exactly.
Glad you put on a shirt, old boy.
Now that you're dressed for the occasion, would you mind popping on some clogs and coming to
Yes,
Rome?
would you mind very much saving us all? It's the Aequians, you see.
Yes, exactly. It's rather alarming. I'm not going to beat around the bush, old chap. We've got a boat waiting for you. Tally ho! And away we go. So, yes.
I want to do the whole episode in faux English accents now.
I feel like eventually our listeners will stop listening if we do. Yeah, so he gets on the boat, paid for by the state, of course.
Is this a state-run vessel? Who are these men?
As he gets to the other side of the river, his 3 sons that were not attacked,
exiled.
Yeah, when Kaiso was, are waiting for him. On top of that, all his family, all his friends, and I say friends loosely. I feel like this might mean, like clients and that kind
hangers
of stuff.
on.
And of course, most of the Senate are, fangirling as well.
Cincinnatus.
Oh my God, even though you're wearing a toga, I think I can smell the farm on you.
Is that straw in your hair?
Are you putting aside your farming for your stately duty?
Have you come to save us again?
So hot.
How can we ever repay you?
God, America's going to go crazy for this eventually. Anyway, so yeah, attended by this huge crowd and also lictors because, he's now...
All 24 of them. That is a lot of lictors.
He's now got an official position. He's escorted to his townhouse where he shall be residing. Now, the plebeians too haven't, failed to notice this crowd of people following Cincinnatus around.
Wait a minute, isn't that the farmer?
I presume they all know Cincinnatus pretty well by now, given their dealings with Kaiso.
And also their dealings with Cincinnatus, because he has been pretty harsh with them.
Absolutely, yeah. So double trouble. For one reason or another, I feel like they would know who he was.
And they don't like him because he's pretty against them.
No, exactly. So they see him being escorted around. They're not happy about it, as you might imagine. And
this can only mean bad things for the plebeians.
Well, essentially that is the case. They're extremely wary of the fact that he's just been appointed dictator. They seem to be mumbling to each other, isn't this just a trifle excessive? I feel like this is just a tad OTT. Hey, you know me. So they're very...
Gosh, do you think it's really that bad? I can't even see the Sabines anymore.
If we are going to appoint someone dictator, does it really have to be this chap? He's been a little bit, problematic in the past. So, yeah.
His middle name's Boris,
FYI, listeners, we happen to be recording on the date of the UK election. I'm totally breaking all podcast rules by telling you that. Anyway, so I feel like I should pause at this big moment and throw to you, Dr. G, what's happening in Dionysius's land.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, let me just flick ahead to the part where we get to have a dictator, because that doesn't happen for quite some time in Dionysius' account. It happens right towards the end of the year. So, flicking ahead a few pages into the source, it turns out that they do get to a point, like in Livy's account, where they realise that they need some extra assistance. They feel very much that something, in addition to having 2 consuls on the ground, one proconsular force looking after the city, is not enough.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are we going to do about that?
So it feels like in Dionysius' account they might have persisted for a little bit longer than Livy. I feel like Livy goes to Cincinnatus very quickly, whereas...
Yeah, I mean, the lead into this is really that the Roman force that Minucius is leading...
Yes.
We left on a cliffhanger where they had decided to attack and pursue Gracchus's Aequian force. And, we're stuck in this valley.
Yeah.
There's no way out. We're just going to have to attack the Aequians.
There's one way out.
There's one way out, and we're going to take it. We're certainly not retreating. That's not what the Romans do at all.
Yeah.
So they push ahead, and it's a disaster.
Right.
And they get beaten back. And they basically have to run away with their tail between their legs.
Yeah.
It's a problem. And then they have to camp somewhere which is pretty unfavourable.
Yeah.
And Cloelius, in the meantime, is crowing about his success.
Yeah.
Which just makes it worse. That's salt in the wound for a Roman.
Which I think is what Livy was referring to when he said the Aequians grew bolder when the Romans weren't doing so well.
And news of the problem reaches Fabius, who's leading the forces in Rome. And he gets together his own sort of extra body of fit, strong men. And
as a Fabian is one to do. Lest we forget, Fabius, how, your entire family was wiped out that way.
The fittest and the strongest will be sent. So he sends the fittest and strongest men in his force to go and help the consul.
Yeah.
They're led by a quaestor, Quintius.
Right.
Who's also an ex-consul.
Mm-hmm.
And Fabius also then sends a letter to Nautius,
and
we're like, help out, buddy. We've got a situation on our hands. And because they don't think that any of that is going to be quite enough, that's when they name Lucius Quintius Cincinnatus as dictator without him knowing.
Right.
Because he's not in the city.
No.
He's doing his usual thing of being a good farmer.
In the city?
No, he's tending to his business.
Where all that decadence happens?
Well, yeah, and the trouble is that he's a farmer at heart.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, this precise sort of situation where they try to appoint him something or other, consul, I believe, without his knowledge.
Yes.
He was farming and it ruined his harvest because he had to leave.
And I felt like that was the moment that maybe Livy was like harking back to in your account. With I remember you talking about his shirtlessness.
Oh yeah, but just you wait, because it's almost like we're going to have a 2.0 on that.
Nice.
Yeah, you have a good scene where a man takes off his shirt. You repeat it in the second season. That's a Cincinnatus moment. Dionysius is going to go down
having
this
his
path.
Mr. Darcy moment.
He is, for the second time.
Yeah.
And we'll see how this plays out for him. So he's appointed dictator in absentia. And this means that some people have to get sent out to kind of have a chat to him about that.
Yeah. Dictators are generally more effective when they know that they're dictators.
Yeah, it does help. It does help. So what they do is they wander down. And so part of the problem is that he's there and he's shirtless.
That is a problem because he's so hot with his shirt off. I can't concentrate, Dr. G. Stop bringing it up.
Yeah. So he's farming. It's nearly time for the harvest again because we know that the Aequians have just taken Tusculum's harvest crop. So it's about that time of year. It's actually a busy time for farmers.
Yeah. And it's probably why everyone's attacking everyone's fields.
Yeah.
It's maximum damage, right?
Yeah, definitely. So Fabius sends out some men to invite Cincinnatus to come and assume this new magistracy, the dictatorship.
Yep.
It chanced, Dionysius tells us, it chanced that Quintius was on this occasion also engaged in some work of husbandry.
Oh. Excellent.
And seeing the approaching throng and suspecting that they were coming after him, he put on more becoming apparel and went to meet them. So you sort of like cutscene and it's like, you know, you're in Rome and it's like, somebody bring me Cincinnatus to be the dictator. Cut. Shift to the farm scene. It's a long shot. And then there's a man shirtless in the field. And in the distance, as it zooms in close on his back, pristine muscles in the field, engaging in some hard labor. We go behind the shoulder so we can see all of his glory physically and see what he sees, which is men in togas approaching in the distance. And they've got some lictors with them, so that's a bit of an issue. And he's like, I guess I better put on some more clothes.
I feel like this is how I feel when I'm on school holidays and someone knocks at the door unexpectedly and I'm still in my pajamas
like,
and I haven't put on a bra and I'm like, I actually would like to pretend I'm not home, but unfortunately because I've got the television on, I have to answer the door and this is awkward.
Yes. I will spend a couple of minutes getting myself dressed.
Yeah.
And then answer the door as if I just looked this way all along.
Exactly, yeah.
So he sees them and he puts on some more becoming apparel, so throws on a tunic or some such.
Yep.
Anyway, it becomes pretty clear what's going on when he notices that there are 24 lictors and they have the axes with the rods.
Ooh, they mean business. They mean business, listeners.
He's then presented with a purple robe and the other insignia, which goes with the king. So there's like a scepter involved, a bit of doodads here and there.
All things that just scream, I'm in charge.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like, purple, that's very fetching. His wife in the background is like, I like you in that colour, honey. Make sure you come home. I have to admit, sadly, Dionysius of Halicarnassus omits all mention of Cincinnatus' wife.
Livy's where it's at. Don't you? I don't know how many times to tell you. Livy's where it's at.
But Cincinnatus himself is quite vexed. He's like, and apparently says, this year's crop will be ruined. Again, because of my official duties, and we shall all go dreadfully hungry. So he's not a happy camper, doesn't want to be dictator.
Well, this just adds to the sacrifice, doesn't it, that he makes for the state eventually.
Yes, and so...
We all know what you're going to say, Cincinnatus. Don't pretend.
So he gets forced into this position, apparently. He goes to the city, gives a speech to the people to raise their spirits. And then
I'm sure they feel great now.
There's nothing like
nothing like your enemy being appointed dictator,
feeling downtrodden, and then having the guy who trod you down being like, let's all get together. And then he appoints Lucius Tarquinius Flaccus as his master of the horse.
I have a similar one. I have Lucius Tarquitius.
Yes, there seems to be some variations on the spelling.
Yes. But essentially the same person.
And I love a good Flaccus because this cognomen translates essentially as floppy-eared.
Wow. Okay, that's unfortunate. Do you think that's like Prince Charles
syndrome? Do your ears hang low? Do they wobble to and fro? Can you tie him in a knot? Can you tie him in a boat? Oh, okay, I won't keep going. Flaccus is there. He's trying to hop on a horse and his ears are in the way, but he tries his best.
Dumbo the greatest.
He's always listening.
Now, I actually have a little detail about him, which I think ties in with Cincinnatus's whole brand. I feel like he's very on brand with this appointment. Because Tarquinius is patrician, of course, but because he's not particularly wealthy, he has only been able to serve as a foot soldier in the past in the army. So everyone respects him a lot, but he maybe doesn't hold the position that he might have been able to if he was a little wealthier. I feel like that's very Cincinnatus to pick such a man to be his magister equitum.
Yes, someone who's valiant in war.
Exactly.
And on the right side of the family tree, but on the wrong side of poverty.
Exactly.
All right. Good job, Cincinnatus.
Yep.
Great way to ingrate yourself to the founding fathers.
Yeah. Now, in Livy's account, in as part of this address to the people, he proclaims the courts are suspended, shops to be closed, all private business of any kind to cease. It's an emergency.
But what about the fish sauce?
It's an emergency. If only our own government recognised when there was an emergency happening and, did something for it.
Don't talk about the government.
Well, we take it off the air.
If we don't come back, you'll know what happened to us, listeners.
Yeah. Anyway, emergencies aside. Yes.
So what does Cincinnatus do? Now he's the dictator. He's got what is essentially the power of a Roman king on the grand scale. Like, he sits above every other magistracy. He has an absolute kind of power.
And he's got his little helper.
And he's got
Quidius.
he's got his floppy-eared helper.
Yeah.
So those two are now the most important legally of all of the Romans. What does he do?
Well, he gets down to business, Dr. G, because that is what he is all about. I mean, we're dealing with a military emergency here. So he immediately, in my accounts, commands all men who are of military age to gather their arms, to get together bread that will last 5 days, and to report to the Campus Martius, militaristic assembly place that it is, before sunset on that day. And if you are not a man of military age, then you should help the men that are of military age to get their crap together.
Somebody give that man a loaf of bread. He needs to get on the road.
Exactly. Get baking, get weapons together. Oh, and they also importantly need to have 12 stakes. So that'll come back.
Are these wooden stakes or are these like T-bone stakes?
No. Sorry.
And I'm like, that's a lot of meat.
No.
I don't think we'd want to sacrifice that many animals at this
Even
stage.
the Romans are not taking, that much meat on campaign.
Whew.
No. Stakes as in like palings, I suppose.
Oh, okay. To build some sort of defensive structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So does that also happen in your account?
No.
Well, it's actually quite funny because Livy makes me feel like they all run in every direction, running into each other, panicking that they don't have stakes. Where are the stakes? God damn it!
Chop down that tree.
Exactly.
Turn it into stakes.
But they're all obviously very keen to obey Cincinnatus. He's just that kind of guy. And so they do assemble as requested on the Campus Martius with said equipment.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. All it takes is one person who just is so charismatic you can't refuse them to tell you to do something, and all of a sudden your army has grown by like 5 times its size.
Well, isn't this the appeal of the dictator? The fact that it is meant to be like one guy taking over, and
this is always the struggle that we have in a
Yeah.
democracy, is that the temptation to just be led by a charismatic leader always looms on the fringes of a fragile democracy.
Ooh. I feel like you're foreshadowing, Dr. G.
Ah,
Let me take you back into the past from the present.
thank you. Before I get lost.
So my count basically means that they can set off now. Like, they're ready. They're ready to go and face the enemy.
That didn't take long.
Well, no.
Good job, Cincinnatus.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just very enthusiastic marching until they reach the camp of the enemy.
Britannia! Britannia rules the sea.
Very much, yeah.
Right.
And so they march until very late at night. They reach Mount Algidus.
Aha!
Yeah.
And this is where all the trouble is.
This is where all the trouble is. This is
Yeah.
where Cloelius is. This is where the other Romans are.
Minucius is sort of like, help! I'm stuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're riding to their rescue.
All right. Well, yeah, so Dionysius kind of skips straight to the point with that. He doesn't talk too much about the organization.
Out!
I know. What are the chances?
Yeah.
So as soon as all of these details that you've described are sort of covered in one line.
Right. Wow, what a reversal of our situation.
Yeah, he gathers some forces, gets them assembled, and then leads them out, including Fabius's forces, and heads out against the enemy. And as they're heading out, they start to approach Mount Aegitus, and Cloelius sees them coming, and he is unmoved.
Of course. He's very confident and cocky by this stage.
A severe battle ensued.
Oh, wow. Okay, we really are getting right down to business, aren't we?
Yeah, that was fast, wasn't it? Gracchus was beaten and shut up once more in his camp.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to finish after you said shut up.
They shoved an oak in his mouth.
That's right.
And that was the end of him. He has to retreat. He gets penned up. And then Quintius surrounds the camp. So this is Cincinnatus surrounds the camp with a high palisade fortified with many towers.
See, this is the stakes. Yeah.
The stakes were never mentioned in Dionysius.
This is exactly why I mentioned them. Because once he reaches the enemy, they do a very thorough inspection, Dr. G. I get the full works on this. Cincinnatus has clearly got an eye for strategy. He wants to figure out exactly what he'd be best, to do. So he tells everyone, look, just throw down your gear. Let's have a bit of a look around, see what we're actually dealing with here. And then eventually, once he's satisfied with what he's seen, that's when he says, right, let's surround the enemy. And on my order, everyone digs a trench, and then we erect a palisade.
Very
nice.
It's
organisation to it.
Yeah.
It's working well for him.
He's a great dictator.
Yeah, and the Romans
he could tell me to do
side
anything. Really.
Are cheering and cheerful and happy because they can hear each other, and help has obviously arrived. It's all happy.
Oh, hello there, old chap. Didn't know I was going to see you down here.
All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
It's a very nice palisade you got there. Very nice indeed.
Oh, gee, thanks. My missus whipped them up before I left.
Oh, lovely steaks. I'll have to thank her when we get home. So they build this whole defensive structure around Gracchus's camp. This is a huge problem. Now Gracchus is basically being besieged, whereas before he had the upper hand.
Yes.
Yes, he's...
the besieger becomes the besieged.
Yes.
That old tale.
Sad times.
Yeah.
And... eventually, it becomes clear that the Aequian forces are in distress and they're getting low on provisions.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Livy's account, I gather that the way that the events seem to unfold, I gather that whilst Cincinnatus and his forces are getting into place and getting ready, so, digging their trenches, erecting their palisade, etc., the Aequians obviously know they're being surrounded, and they start fighting the consular forces that are in the camp that's been trapped. And so they fight all night. And that's weird. It's not often we get a nighttime battle, so that's a bit strange. That happens. And then by the time dawn comes, they are flagging. They are in trouble, they're tired. And that's, of course, just at the right time that Cincinnatus's forces are ready to go from the outside. And so it's quite clear they're not going to make it.
Yeah, this does seem complicated. So we get this sense, even in Dionysius' narrative, we get this sense that Gracchus has been split off from some of the Aequian forces. And the bulk of the Aequian forces are fighting Minucius.
Yes.
And so that's sort of like taking place, and it's going against the Aequians now. And Gracchus has been sort of like stuck in this spot where Cincinnatus has had the opportunity to build some defenses around him.
Yes.
Goodness knows how that happened, because you have to get stuck for a while for somebody to erect a whole structure around you. Nevertheless, that seems to be what both of our sources are suggesting happens.
Yeah.
The Aequians start to really flag, and it's possibly of no surprise that they begin to sue for peace.
Yes.
This is what Cincinnatus has been waiting for.
Yeah, after the Romans were told to talk to an oak rather than actually converse directly with Cloelius and the Aequians, because they were like, not interested in anything you have to say. This would have been a rich moment.
Yes, and Cincinnatus does enjoy it. He basically tells the Aequians that he's very happy to make peace with all of the Aequians except Gracchus.
Yes.
And if the Aequians are interested in peace, they all need to pass under the yoke one at a time.
Yes, and now you did actually mention this. I don't think it was last episode. I think it was a couple of episodes ago. The passing under the yoke not being, it sounds agricultural, which seems weird in a military context.
Yeah, and it was originally an agricultural sort of idea, the yoke being the thing that is worn around the sort of the animal's neck and shoulders to sort of keep it going in the right direction when you're trying to do some ploughing and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it takes on a symbolic meaning in a military context. And basically it's this, they create a formation of spears intercrossed with each other to form a kind of tunnel.
Yeah.
And the Roman soldiers will hold it and create this tunnel. And each of the enemies will walk underneath what is called the symbolic yoke, which is this
It sounds like
tunnel
fun.
of spears. Yeah. I mean, I think I described it as a bit like, you know, like those sort of things that people do at weddings where everybody's holding sparklers to create it sounds lovely. But in a Roman context, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's very shameful.
It's very shameful. Every Roman soldier has the chance to jeer at you and call you names or whatever, spit on you, kick you as you go under through this tunnel. But also you legally shift from being in a state of enmity to Rome to a state of submission to Rome.
Now, I don't know whether this is going to excite you or not, but again, it's...
Does it involve shirtlessness?
Sadly, no. But it's a weird kind of level of detail for Livy because he doesn't always go into this kind of stuff. He actually tells me that the yoke was fashioned out of 3 spears.
Oh, very nice.
So that there were 2 in the ground and then one was laid across the top, and this is what they all had to pass through as part of their, you know, the shameful part of their surrender.
The walk of shame.
But hey, you know what? They had the chance, apparently, to kill them. And didn't, James Bond villain style. They lived to fight again another day. Now, of course, one of the benefits for Cincinnatus and all his followers is that they now get to take the Aequian camp and everything in it. So there's quite a lot of spoils and booty to be had.
Whoop, whoop.
Cincinnatus, however, as we know, bit of a stickler.
He doesn't really care about booty, does he?
Well, it's not so much that, but he cares about who gets it. So he says that, and this comes back to a point that you made in a previous episode, Dr. G, about the consulship, okay? He says that only the people that were under his command deserve to have the booty. That Minucius and his followers were undeserving. It's at this time that Minucius abdicates his consulship, but stays on serving under Cincinnatus. Now, you mentioned when we were talking about the consulship for this year before that there was a bit of confusion about who the consuls actually were for this year, or at least who was the
ordinary as opposed to suffect consuls.
Yes,
yeah.
The ordinary being the more important consul, the one that gives their name to the year. I think this is where the confusion partly stems from. The fact that Minucius gives up the consulship.
Lays down the consulship.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know what?
And that is a moment of huge shame to be told by the dictator.
Yeah.
That you and your commanders are not worthy.
Yeah, and Minucius comes from a fairly well-known family. Like, we've mentioned this name a few times. And
this is where the reputation... Cincinnatus has this reputation for uncompromising harshness in his approach.
And the Romans love it.
Like, his interpretation of what it means to be Roman and what constitutes virtus is so traditionally conservative and down the line. So I'm guessing the rationale that Cincinnatus has for this is Minucius is the reason why he had to become dictator in the first place. Minucius was not able to fulfill his responsibility as consul.
No.
And actually needed a dictator to come and get him out of this mess. And this means that he has essentially drained every worthy quality out of the consulship that he has held and made it worthless.
Wow. I feel really depressed now. But yeah, so I think that's where the confusion arises from. And I could be wrong about this because we have done a lot of episodes now, but I actually don't remember anyone else resigning from the consulship.
I don't recall it, no.
I mean, people have died in the consulship, sure.
Yes.
But
that's usually really, really brave and great.
Yeah, or foolish.
Or it was a plague.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Or a plague, yeah. Yeah, we've had a lot of people die. But I don't remember anyone resigning before. So I feel like this is a pretty big moment.
Yeah.
You know, first person potentially to resign. So great news for Cincinnatus' army because they get, you know, so much booty. And Livy tells me that the army were just the best shape ever, having someone like Cincinnatus in charge. You know, they just really thrive under strong leadership, Dr. G.
I just love being told what to do. I'm a natural submissive.
Exactly. And they love him so much that they give him a very elaborate gift, you know, a golden object. And they also salute him as their protector when it's time for him to leave.
He's so misunderstood. The poor man. He tells everybody what he wants. He just wants to be left alone to farm. And they're like, how about this gold statue? And he's like, I told you, I just want to farm.
Yeah, so it's fairly impressive times. And naturally, as you would probably be expecting, Dr. G, what follows from this is huge triumph. The Senate are very happy with the job that Cincinnatus has done. And so when he returns to Rome, naturally, he is greeted with a huge triumph. Impressive. Does he get a triumph in your account as well?
Well, let me take you through my account. Yeah. So we go back a little bit. So, like, everybody's passed under the yoke, and that's fine. But Gracchus and the people who planned the revolt with Gracchus, Cincinnatus refuses to allow them to pass under the yoke. He orders them to be brought to him in chains.
Yeah, that happens in Livy too.
So that's Gracchus done with. Bit of a shame, really. He seemed like a bright spark in a dark Aequian world.
Quickly snuffed out. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Aequians agree to all of this. And Gracchus is like, guys. They're like, bye. It's been great. Sorry.
Yeah, if we can live, chains sounds good. Yeah.
But not only that, Cincinnatus then asks to have the city of Corbio to be given to the Romans.
Yes, I did actually leave out that detail. Yes.
So this is the most significant Aequian city that they have right now. And he's like, in the same way that you treated Tusculum, we want to treat Corbio. That is part of the agreement. If you don't give us this, you can't have peace.
It's also like how they wanted Antium so badly in the Volscian territory.
Yeah, they're like, you want peace so badly? Well, here's my terms. I want your capital city, essentially.
Yeah.
And the Aequians are like, okay.
Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit. Do we have to? And he's like, yes. And so, having done that, that's where they get the booty from. So they basically sack Corbio and free the Tusculans who've been kept there as hostages.
The poor little Tusculans. I actually have one of them, Lucius Mamilius, getting citizenship.
Oh, that's nice.
Isn't it just?
Oh, good on him.
With the approval of all.
Oh.
So
he must have done something good.
I know. I'm actually astounded that Livy just drops that in there.
And doesn't tell us
why. Yeah.
Damn you, Livy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave that one as a bit of a mystery to look into later, perhaps.
Exactly.
So the choice spoils from Corbio are taken back to the city. The rest are distributed to the sentries and the troops, and some quaestors get involved as well. And after that, they head back to Rome, which is very exciting.
Because it's triumph time.
It's triumph time.
It seems to be truly epic. You know, lots of food, lots of joking around, lots of good stuff happening.
Yeah. And Dionysius does also let us know that Minucius is forced to resign his magistracy on the return to Rome.
Okay.
So there's a nice correlation between Livy and Dionysius' account here. But the triumph is apparently incredible because in the space of 16 days,
it's not long.
He saves the army.
Yeah.
He creates a first-rate force.
Yeah.
He plunders one of their cities. He leaves a garrison in Corbio, and he brings back the leader of the war in chains. So Gracchus is brought back.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman, Cincinnatus.
You can take the man from the farm, but he's never far from Rome. So it's pretty amazing stuff. And this basically frees up some space for Dionysius to do a hagiography of Cincinnatus. Because he gets to like really dig into that mythos of Cincinnatus's virtus. So not only does he have this incredible triumph on the back of all of these things that he's done in like just over 2 weeks, and everyone's like, Core blimey, we should have called him months ago. Fixed us right up. We've won the war, we got a lot of treasure, and this Gracchus character. Oh, he doesn't look too shabby, does he? So anyway, he manages to achieve all of this stuff in less than 3 weeks.
Look, I mean, timeline-wise, yeah, it's impressive. But you know what, Dr. G? I'm not that excited because Livy finishes the year on a bit of a dark note for me.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just get in a couple of more positive things because I think we should end on a dark note, frankly.
That's the way we like to do it.
So not only does he have this incredible triumph for these incredible things that he's done in a very short space of time,
yes,
he immediately then abdicates out of the dictatorship, doesn't want to hold it for the full 6 months.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, no, well, we've got to compensate you in some way for your great service. I mean, you've saved everybody. They're like, how about some conquered land? I mean, we've got this great sort of strip in the Aequian territory now. Do you want it? And they're like, how about some slaves and some money from the spoils? You should really take your share. You live in poverty. I mean, this is a good choice for you. I mean, your family is pretty poor. They've got a great reputation, but they don't have any cash.
Well, this is the thing. When Caeso went into self-imposed exile, whatever the hell that was, by doing so, he forced his father to live in poverty because his father had given up a huge amount of what he had as a surety that Caeso wasn't going to do that.
Awkward.
Yeah, like it's like like an ancient bail system or something.
Yeah, so like everything that Cincinnatus has done rings with this like ancient virtus. He gives up everything, puts everything on the line for his child, his son. Doesn't work out. He accepts the poverty that comes with having made that decision without complaint.
And doesn't seem bitter against the state.
Doesn't seem bitter against the state. That was a private decision and he's happy to hold to the private consequences of it.
Yeah.
When he's called in to aid the state, he steps up and takes his responsibility only to the moment where he doesn't need to do it anymore.
Yes.
And then he steps back again.
Yeah.
So
power does not corrupt him.
Yeah, he's not interested in power. He's not interested in wealth. So he refuses all of the spoils. He refuses the land. And everyone's kind of like, you should probably accept something. I mean, you have saved Rome. And he's like,
please, take this loaf of bread.
And he's like, yeah, like something, anything. Like, you name it, dude. You don't want the land? Fine. You don't want the spoils? Okay. Just, can we gift you something? Because everybody's now feeling guilty. Like, we pulled this guy out because he's amazing, but also now he won't accept a thank you gift. And he says, I don't want any of your presents. Really, seriously, thank you for your enthusiasm. I can't accept. I'm not interested. Goes back to his farm. And his wife's like, finally.
Where's that purple toga?
Please take off that toga and get back to it. And he's like, for you, honey, anything. And that's kind of where things wrap up.
Okay. So for me, this is actually 458 is actually very nicely woven together by Livy because I'm coming back full circle, Dr. G. Before Cincinnatus, he is prepared to give up power. Don't get me wrong. He's not corrupted by it. But before he gives it up, there's one final thing that he's got to see through. Does the name Marcus Volscius mean anything to you? That's right.
The guy I keep forgetting. Yes, I remember him now.
The guy that we kept forgetting.
The tribune of the plebs.
Yeah,
the one who's been involved in getting Caeso Cincinnatus basically shoved out of the city.
Yeah, so Volscius started a lot of the trouble with Caeso because he claimed that Caeso had run into his ill/recovering from illness brother, violently assaulted him to the point where his brother died, and this is part of the reason why Caeso ended up leaving town. Didn't want to face the consequences. There's been moves against Volscius that we've been talking about, but now it's time, and the tribunes are too much in the thrall of Cincinnatus to oppose him this time. They just can't say no. And so the trial goes ahead, and with very little fanfare, Volscius is found guilty and sent into exile.
Wow, just like that.
Just like that.
Oof, I'm hoping that's coming up in my narrative.
Which just seems crazy to me that this guy just goes very quietly off into the sunset, which apparently is Lanuvium. That's where he is.
The Lanuvian sunset.
Once that happens, then Cincinnatus gives up the power of dictator.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to look after family first.
Yeah. In the meantime, Nautius is, just to wrap up the year, Nautius, where we have confirmation that he's fine against the Sabines. So,
he does get short shrift in this narrative.
he's still doing great, but no one really cares.
Great job.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
And Fabius, I guess because Cincinnatus has stepped down, he sent off to take Minucius's place at Mount Algidus. Basically, we've got therefore we've got armies still in the field, even though they might not necessarily be fighting for their lives anymore. Which means that we can't talk about the law against the laws.
Which is exactly what the patricians want.
Yeah. So it's very full circle to me, in that we can't talk about the law against the laws. The only slight bright point that I can end on in all of this is that we do have the same tribunes running for a fifth time and being elected again.
Is that possible if one of them's been sent into exile?
I actually feel like we might have been wrong about that. I feel like that's not possible. Maybe we missed.
I think there was a group of 3 or 4 tribunes.
Yeah,
actually.
maybe that's the case. Yeah, but we've got
just the 2 of them.
We've got the same tribunes being elected for a fifth time, and Livy finishes with a good old prodigy. Haven't had one of these for a while. Wolves are seen prowling on the Capitol, and they're being chased by dogs. As a result, the Capitol is purified.
Oh.
The end. You know what that means, Dr. G.
It's time.
458 is a wrap. It's time for the partial pick. Okay.
All right.
We've got so much to talk about.
We do.
I don't even know where to begin, but you can tell me what's our first category for a potential 10 golden eagles.
Wait for it.
Yeah.
For the partial pick is a possible score out of 50 gold eagles.
In total.
And we have 5 categories, each of which are worth 10.
Yeah.
The first is military clout.
Well, there's definitely some room to move in this category.
There's a lot of military clout
There's a lot of military clout.
I feel like it's a good 10 out of 10.
I kind of feel like it is. There's not really anything bad happening in this one.
It's all
well done,
victories.
Rome. Yeah.
It's all palisades and getting your stakes together.
Ugh, I hate rewarding Cincinnatus.
And second of all, diplomacy.
Well, I
guess...
guess...
If it's by the sword...
Yeah, this is what I mean. I feel like we can't really say there's a lot of diplomacy happening.
No.
Although Cincinnatus did say that the Aequians didn't have to be massacred. He did negotiate a surrender. That's pretty generous. Well, it's...
He does give them the option to go under the yoke.
Yeah.
But is it diplomatic?
I feel like it's like a 2, like it's worth something. Okay. Because he could have just said, you know what, you guys have caused us nothing but trouble. Again,
you're out of here.
Yeah. You're out of here. So
2?
I think a 2. Okay. I mean, I'm happy to go a 1, to be honest, but I feel like it's something.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it really classifies as diplomacy when you're at the end of a sword.
Yeah. I just feel like it is some sort of negotiation, I suppose.
Yeah, but if you don't have the option to say no.
I said, well, you do, but then you don't.
Yeah, but then, yeah.
Okay, fine.
It's the last no you'll ever have.
All right, let's just give it a 1. Let's give it a 1. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Expansion. They gained some Aequian territory.
They do. Corbio, finally, yeah.
And it seemed that Nautius also overruns a large part of Sabine country. Whether they control it, that's another matter.
I'm not getting the sense that that's happening yet, but he's still out there. I mean, that's the thing. At the end of 458...
He could be doing anything out there.
Yeah, exactly. He's still in the midst. So
Nautius, come home.
Is that like a 4?
Yeah.
It's not like a huge amount of territory, so... Okay.
Virtus.
Ooh,
it's a big 10, I think.
It's got to be a 10 out of 10.
It's got to be a 10. Nobody's got more Virtus than Cincinnatus.
Yeah, exactly. Cincinnatus
There's
on
no
his
way.
Own. Yeah.
Look at him go. He says no to all of the things he should say no to. He says yes to all the things he should say yes to.
The farming, the shirtlessness.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
Saving the city. Bringing back an enemy in chains.
Yep.
Resigning from the dictatorship ahead of time. Refusing any presents.
And seeing off the man that destroyed his son. I mean...
Yeah.
I know that's not probably really a thing, but I feel like it's something.
No, he's upholding the family.
Yeah.
Good part of familiar stuff.
All
and
right.
citizen score.
'Kay. Well, I mean, because there is a lot of warfare happening, and Livy does specifically tell us that there are these abortive attempts to talk about more about the laws.
It's pretty bad.
Which aren't happening.
Also, then you just get levied in like a dictatorship where they're like, you must turn up with 12 stakes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they do seem enthusiastic about Cincinnatus. But then, of course,
weirdly,
as if Livy's going to say anything else.
Yeah.
Livy's enthusiastic about Cincinnatus.
Yes.
So I don't really believe him. So I'm saying it's not great.
I'm going to go with maybe a 3.
I think so too. It's not the worst it could be because, let's face it, Cincinnatus, be tough.
Some of the foot soldiers get some booty.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they go out and die. They go out and win.
Yeah, he's tough and fair, and I feel by Roman standards, clearly they seem to respect that.
They do like tough and fair.
Dr. G, hold on to your stola.
Oh.
That means that Rome has ended up with a grand total of 28 golden eagles.
Oh my God, they haven't scored this well in a long time. Where's Cincinnatus when we need him?
I don't think we've cleared the pass point in a long time. I mean, if ever. So
Rome. Oh, this is a big turnaround from the last episode. I don't know if I can cope.
I know, it's pretty heady stuff. So you're definitely going to want to tune in next time. See what happens once Cincinnatus has left Rome.
It'll never be the same again. Forever changed.
Yep, back on his farm. What will the Romans do without him? Now, before we sign off today, we, of course, have to acknowledge that we have a recording space finally very generously arranged by Macquarie University, and we'd like to give personal thanks to Professor Ray Lawrence for helping to make that happen.
Shout out to Macquarie. Thank you. Hi, this is Dr. G here. You've just been listening to another exciting episode from the Partial Historians. We would like to say a huge thank you to our patrons, Dana, Joel, Roman, Savannah, Sharon, Sean, and Zara. Thank you so much for your support. For those of you who are interested in learning more about our podcast, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Catch you next time.